All right, well, we're live. Brian, this is the 55th episode?
56th episode.
56th
right.
episode of the Mama Tried Flat Out Friday podcast. We've been doing this regularly in our secret undisclosed location on the north side of Milwaukee. We are honored to have all the Sumners here. Are there any Sumners that are not here?
Nope.
Exactly.
Not workers.
This is every Sumner in the tri-state area
Yep.
is with us currently. And we're going to unpack them individually, them as a group. We've got our co-host here, Scott Johnson. Scott, where you been? What are you doing?
I don't see you as much as I'd like to. We think when everything after everybody goes back to school, everybody goes back to work, it gets busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought summer was busy.
It is Mama Tried season.
This is true.
Officially, maybe around Thanksgiving we start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're in full planning mode right now. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be here before you know it.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, it's good to see you, Scott. Thanks for helping me out here. This is because this is a lot to unpack. We're going to need two, dare I say we needed three hosts to wrangle the Sumners.
Yeah.
The wild herd.
We
wild
met
herd
with
that
Bert
we are.
Sumner a while back, and we unpacked a bit about Bert Sumner's racing career and knowledge of flat track.
Yeah. Exactly.
We could go back to that, and because Bert's an interesting person, and when we left that interview, we said we should do this again, and we said let's do it again with the whole Sumner
Whole
crew,
Exactly.
because this is a unique unit
Yeah.
of. I'm going to set up the introduction. I'm going to hand it off to you, Scott. I'm going to set up this introduction. This is a bold statement that Wisconsin is lucky to have the Sumners.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. That's
Thank you.
absolutely. I mean, you guys are. When I got into flat track in Wisconsin, the Sumner family was flat track. You guys, you ran it. You organized every event. You did all the signups. You did the track roughing. You did the announcing. You did everything. You guys were my first introduction to flat track racing, and then the first properly. That was outside of a District 16 race was the Dairyland Classic that I ever saw that was like a promoted race. And that just blew my mind too. So that was, you guys are really instrumental in flat track racing since I got into it, which was pretty late. And I know that you all have been at it for a really long time. Forever. Yeah.
Forever. Right.
I want to quantify the statement I said that Wisconsin is lucky to have the Sumners because I've done some traveling and I just assumed that every state, every district had a Sumner. Not literally, but figuratively, that every state had a family that kept the fire burning.
They kept their district number,
And that's not the
Wisconsin's
case.
District 16, and we have the Sumners. And I thought that
everybody had a
that's
Sumner.
how it was. Like everywhere you went, it was that well organized, but it's not really the case.
It's not the case. So I want to quantify that Wisconsin is lucky to have you. So let's unpack a little bit of who you are, just briefly. Over here, what's your name over there in the corner?
I'm Dee Dee Sumner Haupt.
Dee Dee Sumner, and you are the daughter of
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest,
oldest
daughter of Alan
spawn
Jimmy
of these
Sumner.
people over
She
here.
never lets us forget
Yeah.
that she's the oldest.
So maybe I should have stopped if we were going around the circle. We're going to go around this way then. We're going to go clockwise.
Oh, we're
Dee Dee is the
Australia,
oldest.
eh?
Hey, who's that young lady at the end over there? It's hard to see with these bright lights.
That would be me, Judy, the queen of the Sumners.
That's right.
Queen Sumner.
All right.
Queen Sumner.
How about that?
How about you, sir?
I'm Al Sumner. I'm the king.
the king,
That's true.
the king of the Sumners.
That's right.
At least I let them think that.
When they let me.
Over here to my left, who's this?
I'm Bird. I think I'm the seven of clubs of the Sumner family.
And I'm Chris, and I'm the bitchy daughter.
Okay. But together you're a team of flat track, right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and I even leave it at flat track. Period. Because if I add any other adjective in there, it's selling you short. So if I call you a flat track racing family, that's not fair. If I call you a promoting family, that's not fair, because I don't have the adjectives to say that you're a one-stop flat track family.
Right.
Get?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes.
Well, you said, Bert, since forever.
Yeah, that's forever.
How does one get the title then of being the holy family, the royal family of flat track? How does that start?
Well, we certainly didn't give ourselves that title at all.
No.
I think it was just a matter that when Dad started racing in the mid-'60s, the kids came along late '60s. By the time three of us got into racing at the late '70s, and then a year later, Dad took over the refereeship of the district, and he just wanted it to be bigger and better and have more races and more events, and he just carried on that philosophy for the next 60 years.
What was flat track racing in the district before you guys ostensibly took it over compared to what it is now? I mean, how would it be? I mean, I know there's a lot of I think I heard somebody say they were using knobby tires.
Yeah,
when
it was motocross in a circle
Yes.
back then. Yeah, we didn't have a Class C tire rule at the time.
Okay.
And so it was, and literally it was, the bikes were unlowered motocross bikes with knobby rear tires. And it wasn't until we went over to the Amateur Nationals in Niles, Michigan in '81, which was a hard-packed, oiled clay racetrack. And everyone from Wisconsin that went over with knobby tires was at a disadvantage, shall we say.
Yeah, slightly.
And came back, and that fall, Dad implemented a Class C tire rule for all the amateur classes. He was crucified and vilified for that decision because of how it was going to ruin everything. And within 10 years after that decision, we had a dozen guys from the state had national numbers. So it was, and the tracks got better, the competition got better, the racing got better, and it stopped being motocross in a circle.
Right. And were there just as many people racing back then as there were, or was just a much smaller group, less organized? Less
No,
classes?
I think it was about the same size.
Yeah.
But the thing was that when I got involved, there were more professional dirt track races than there were amateur.
Oh, right.
I think my first year as district referee, there were only like 6 events on the schedule. And at the same time, there were over 20 pro dirt tracks in the state.
Wait, what? Really?
Complete
Really?
opposite of how it is now. Yeah.
Yeah, because every county fairgrounds had an oval track just about
Okay.
that was supported by the horse people.
Okay.
And flat track promoters came in, John Miller being one. I mean, there were a bunch of them that came in and would put on events during the fair circuit.
Okay.
And so they ran all over. The amateurs didn't have that opportunity.
Ah, so like the opposite of what's happening now.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And they were, because they were with the county fairs and the state fairs, there was a built-in audience for the for
You
promoter
bet.
races. So the promoter could put on a big event and hope
Right.
to see a return.
Yeah, well, I think the first and the last ones that the boys ran was probably Portage as a fair date.
Yeah.
Right?
The first couple of years, that was the only one that we really had access to
Correct.
from the little bike level. But yeah, at the pro level, they ran a couple at Marshfield, they ran 2 at Elkhorn, they ran 2 at Beaver Dam, they ran a couple at Fond du Lac. Wausau always did the 4th of July weekend, Sturgeon Bay.
Neilsville.
You
you
was
name
just
it.
more.
Wow.
There was just more going on, and also with the sport back then, the rule book prohibited you from racing one motorcycle more than once, and so there were only when we joined there was only 7 classes at the amateur level,
Okay.
and the pro had novice, junior, expert. So, I mean, when we started, everyone got 3 practice
No
tickets.
kids.
Everyone had 3 practice tickets. You ran, your heat and your final. If you didn't make the final, that was it. There weren't any semis, but the racing was done by like 3:00 in the afternoon.
Wow.
I want to hallmark this though. The pro races at that time, they were running Class C tires.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Pro
it
always
was,
had.
It was the amateurs that just needed a little more guidance.
Correct.
Okay.
And that was a big struggle.
To get back on the tire thing, and it didn't have to be 19-inch flat
No.
track tires. It could just be anything that wasn't a knobby tire.
Correct. Trials tire was as aggressive, I think, as it was allowed at the time.
Okay.
And that was at certain tracks. A lot of tracks didn't allow you to run the trials type
Oh,
tire.
really? Wait, let's circle back to something I think that I'm curious about, but I'm sure listeners might be too. Is what about an oiled clay track?
Well,
I've heard of that, but-
Atwater was oiled when we started racing there.
Yes.
Really?
They used to dump a 55-gallon drum on it
Really?
back when it was loamy dirt. It's not the clay that it was now.
Okay.
It was very loose. There wasn't any rocks, and they would pour oil down on it. I remember that.
Really?
Yes, and we were encouraged to bring used oil from our cars and they'd dump it on the track.
To make the dirt sort of have a loamy texture to it. It
More cohesive.
It wasn't to make it slicker. It was for the opposite, right? It was
Correct.
like to bind the dirt together.
Bind the dirt together for good, consistent traction.
Gotcha.
And probably to keep the dust down as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
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 Because at water, well, any tracks around here, it gets dusty if
Yep.
it's not wet.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, most tracks were taken care of that way with oil
Okay.
or whatever. I mean,
Right.
we tried umpteen different compounds of stuff, soap, and you name it, vegetable
Really?
oil, which got smelly, so we couldn't use that more.
Right.
But oh yeah,
And were there a lot of were most of the tracks even back then that were being used all hard packed clay tracks? Back
No.
then? No.
No, not at the amateur level.
No.
Atwater was loose. Astellan was kind of a gravel pit at the time.
yep,
Really?
Newburgh was a big gravel pit with a very steep bank to it.
Really?
Denmark was
same
just
thing.
a field, just out
They
in
were
the
all
field.
pretty much the same.
Okay.
Yeah, the only track that was not, I would say, would be Marshfield because that was the fairgrounds track, and they had at that time and Antigo they had car races going, so they would, okay, they're running the cars Friday night, we're going to do a motorcycle race Sunday.
Oh.
So the prep was basically done.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right on.
Yep.
And I guess I'm gonna go back because you said there was mostly at horse tracks, so they ran on a cushion, right? They ran
Right.
on-
Well, for the pro racing, those were. Wausau was loose. Beaver Dam at the time, the half mile was loose dirt, similar to what was at the Atwater club grounds. Elkhorn is the limestone that it still is. I don't remember what Marshfield was, but Sturgeon Bay was kind of the same material it is now. But that was the pro circuit was different than the amateur circuit, and at that time, the tracks were better at the pro circuit because the tires that were being used were better, and so advancing up through the amateur ranks and turning pro meant you could go and race at the better racetracks.
Right.
And now it's kind of flipped to where the amateur tracks are, in a lot of cases, better than what the pro tracks are.
Okay.
for
Because
sure.
because the pro tracks have to be prepped, so the window of time to prep and get it ready and
Right.
put the race on and have it televised.
Right.
Pick up
And
move
there's
on to
fewer
the next
racers
one.
at the pro level now.
Right. And
Yeah.
so could you if you were a pro racer back then, could you earn a living?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Racing that often? How late did that carry on?
The early 80s, mid 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because here in the Midwest, all the pro racers from all around the country would move around Chicago as a focal point. And they lived there in the summertime because they could race Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes twice on Saturday, and on Sunday.
Wow.
So they could run, if you wanted to, you could race a lot. You didn't make a lot,
Yeah.
but you could race a lot.
And you could have a go of it.
Oh,
have,
yeah.
have a good time and
Yes.
You can make a couple $100 at a race when, typically that's what you were taking home if you worked all week.
Yeah.
Charlie Chappell told me that he and Neil, between the two of them, had made like $1,500 just on a weekend of racing, and that's back when people were making maybe $500 a week,
Yeah.
working 40 hours a week. So he's like, I'd rather do this than work.
right.
Yep.
And was Santa Fe open back then?
Yeah.
That was
And-
Wednesday night.
Wednesday nights.
That was Wednesday nights. Yeah. And how many people would show up at an event like that?
At Santa
Riders?
Fe?
Yeah.
At Santa Fe, easily you could get 200
Really.
in the three classes.
Wow.
And as Bert will testify, there were three grades, novice, junior, expert, and they'd line them up at the edge of the track. And as the last guy got the checkered flag in a practice session over on the front straightaway, the next group was pulling onto the track.
Wow.
So they'd get us out there twice at least, right, Bert?
Yeah. Yeah. It was-
Sometimes three times if you were lucky.
Wow.
practice started at 6, and at 6:01 bikes were on the track
Yeah, it was
every
Yeah.
Wednesday.
They had it figured out down there.
That's cool.
That's where this one learned how to do scoring and everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they pulled me out of the grandstands one year. We need help down there. I said, doing what? Well, you have to score. Oh, good Lord. Well, I learned how to turn around pretty quick.
Well, hang on. Before we move into how the family got involved as a unit, I just got one dangling participle to ask you. So you had a pro career.
Yes.
And you weren't making money per se, or were you? No.
I was a novice many years. Novices didn't make money unless you were the top 5.
Okay, but you were it obviously was something the family had done together at that point. Followed Dad to races.
Yes.
And you were racing how many nights a week at that time?
Well, most of the time it'd just be Wednesday night at Santa Fe, and then the weekend.
On the dot.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And if you weren't there at 4 o'clock, you weren't going.
Really?
That's right. I'd put my bike in the van the night before, and they'd come pick me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I really appreciate that the family rallying around you. I can't imagine my family showing up for from much. So I respect that. But here's my dangling participle question. So you had a pro career and you came back to Wisconsin. So why would you subject yourself to getting involved with amateur racing? Why put yourself through that headache and the drama?
3 of them are right here.
Well, what do you mean?
They raced. They wanted to start racing, right? Bert?
Yeah.
Chris? Chris raced for a year. She didn't want to.
He took it to the lake. He took it to the Lake Geneva ice race in '77 or '78, and they had a mini class. And on the way home, I think we asked him, "How come? What would we have to do to get into racing?"
Yeah.
And I think he almost hit a tree on the way home because of the,
Because he was so excited, or what?
or Mom maybe pulled the wheel and went, "I'm ending it now." And then the following January, he bought 2 Italjits and we went and we started racing. Then a year later, Chris came in and there were 3 of us racing.
Yeah.
And at the time, they didn't have the whole series of.
Pull your mic a little bit closer. Yeah, or leaning a little closer. Yeah.
At the time, they didn't have a whole ton of mini classes, so
They didn't have
the
any.
boys on Italjets, one of them was on a 50cc racing in the 85 class because that was the smallest class we had, and he took a lot of heat just to get that onto the programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And look where we are today.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot smaller number of classes that you could enter into.
4.
Wow.
100, 125, 250, and open.
Yeah.
Period.
That was when he started. When we started, it was 80, 100, 125, 200, 250 and open.
Right. We opened it up
That
a
was in
bit.
'79.
Yeah.
But that was a 2-stroke oriented world that you guys were in at
Yeah,
the time.
other than the open class,
Right.
that was all the BSAs and Triumphs
Yep.
and Harley Twins.
And they would put them all together into one class.
It was all discipline broken, or it was all displacement broken.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had a 250, you raced the 250 class. If you had a 500, you raced the open class.
Okay. But
Whereas-
all the opens, but the 500s are racing against the 750
Yes.
and
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
you had.
Yeah.
And then eventually a 500 class was added, and then in the 80 class, there were so many kids racing that it broke down to 80 senior and 80 junior, or 80 A and B, and then 60s came in,
Yep.
and then 50s came in, and then PW 50s came in, and then the 100s went away, and then the senior class turned into the veterans class, and senior class turned into the veteran senior super senior,
Yeah. And so on and so on
and so on and so on.
Well, so let me again put this before I turn it loose to Scott. So you started racing. You kind of hung up your pro career, so to speak, and decided you were going to put some effort into creating amateur racing in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
With your 3 kids
Mm-hmm.
and your wife, who has a little backdrop at that time or a little knowledge of scorekeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's
kind of
where
it.
we're at so far in this history of the Sumner.
And
Yeah.
in addition to that, though, too, he was one of the founding members of Astaland, so we were out there on weekends when there wasn't a race.
Explain that. Explain to
really?
people that don't know what a founding member of Astaland is.
So there were 12 guys that were looking around for a
7?
place to go. 7 guys to go riding. Maybe I'm counting spouses.
Yeah,
Give me
we
a
got kicked out of
year. What
everything.
year is this?
Yeah.
70 or
71.
71.
71, 72.
69, 70, so
68.
68.
Yeah. It started in 68. I worked at Competition Cycle on 27th and National.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Sure, good.
And I was various things up to being next to the owner. And every week we would go out riding, the employees. And being at that time I was racing flat track professionally. So they would say, okay, let's take Al along. Let's find a piece of crap in a corner we can hurt him on. And we go find places to ride. And we got kicked out of everywhere. And then two of the guys lived in Waukesha.
What does that mean though? You were just riding in farmers' fields?
Yeah,
or,
we'd go along a road, down a road. Hey, that looks like a neat place over there. We'd go over there until somebody would come out and
Not
chase us
ask
away.
permission or anything. You just unload and start riding.
And we'd start going to Bong Air Base
Okay.
when they canceled the Strack Base.
Okay.
And
I didn't realize that was an air base. So the park is
Strategic Air Command,
Really?
it was going to be B-52s until the local residents in the town west of there, my mind just
I
fried.
don't know.
There's some
Whitewater?
town west, huh?
Whitewater,
No.
Troy.
Not
No.
that far.
No, not that far.
But anyhow, they got up in arms when they found it was going to be a strategic bomber base because they'd be flying over the town at about 1,000 feet altitude.
That'd be cool.
And they said, I'm not going to have one of those drop a nuke in my yard.
Yeah.
So they canceled the project.
Okay.
But the runways were laid out, et cetera. So we would go running up and down. And
Well, for those who don't know, Bong Recreation Area, and it has an odd name, but it's,
Yes.
people love to steal that sign. But it was the
Right.
only kind of the only public dirt places you can ride in southeastern Wisconsin.
that's right, yeah. And for those that don't know, Bong was a pilot. Pilot in World War II, a hero.
Okay.
So they named it after him.
All right, got it.
As well
And
as
then
the
so in Aztalan, when we're talking about Aztalan, so Aztalan is the big District 16 is our main track.
Yeah.
It's the main flat
One of
track
the main
between,
tracks.
Yeah,
One of the
between
main.
Milwaukee and Madison. It's the one. I guess it's the one everyone is most familiar
see.
with.
Right,
Yes.
right off I-94.
For sure.
Yeah, because because you see it off the going between Milwaukee and Madison, you can't miss it. It's a huge motocross park and a big
Right.
Dirt track.
quarter
Yep.
mile flat track.
Quarter mile flat.
Yeah, well, the two friends of mine found it by flying in a plane. And oh, look at that. And it was an abandoned gravel pit with a house on it. And one of the people that we hung out with had more money than he knew what to do with. So he bought the property.
Oh,
And then he leased, first he got the zoning changed from whatever it was to recreational. And we formed the club.
wow, that's cool. And that what year was this?
That was 69.
Wow.
And we had our first event in 71, maybe? 70 or 71.
Poster in the barn.
Yeah, in the barn.
In
yeah.
the barn, that's where you guys
In the
did
barn.
sign up and
Yep, everything.
Everything was
Yep.
in the barn, which is still standing.
It's
Yes.
still-
Yeah,
And
even though
then
there's
they-
a lot more updated facilities
Right.
now.
And I was the token flat tracker. The rest of the guys were all motocross, enduro, etc. So two of them built a short track for me.
Really?
And it was shaped just like this table,
Square.
square. It had four corners, da-da-da-da-da. And that's how that started.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And did you have to, you said it was a gravel pit. Did you have to fill it in? Was there was the landscape a lot different then
Not
than
that
it
much.
is now?
Not that much. The pond was a little bigger.
Okay.
And some of the hills that are there, we graded down a little bit to make it more level.
Okay.
But for motocross, you don't want it totally level.
Yeah.
So,
You want
yeah.
the hills and dips, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and the motocross track was originally more natural terrain.
yes.
Over the years, they've added the tunnels that go underneath, and
Yeah.
we can remember going out there where there was just a little split in the fence, and you had to time it right, and you ran across the
Yeah.
Really?
ran across the racetrack to get to different parts. But
Yeah.
but as they've figured out that they can't do that anymore, so they put the tunnels in, and then that led to the Supercross style jumps. I mean, the track layout is still very very similar to what it was
Yep.
from what I remember back in the early '70s, but it was just more natural then than it is now.
Was that hill, the hill where you get where the dive down with
Yeah,
the heart
that
right
was
at the
always there.
bottom? Was it always there? Was it
Flat
taller? Because I remember going there when I was a kid, just being like,
Everything was taller when we were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but like the
Yeah.
bikes could barely make the stop at the bottom and then turn around and go up. Because
No,
they were
we
like,
made it down, knocked
Yeah.
it down.
okay, because
Remember, the bikes didn't have the suspension they have now.
yeah, or the brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So if I'm going to keep this again on a linear historical track, so you
Okay.
started this Astalon, and I'm guessing then now the family's even more involved because you're dragging him to run these events
Yes.
Yep. And then
Boy, he hit that nail on the head, didn't he?
Before that, he dragged us to go pick up the rocks out of the dirt track every
Yeah.
weekend. We were there picking up rocks.
We had to walk
Pick up the
and down
weeds.
track,
Pick up the
full of
weeds.
rocks.
but you guys were riding there, right? He was
Yeah.
having you
We
ride.
picked
Yeah.
up the rocks, yes.
Yeah.
And the beer cans.
And the beer cans.
But so there was a motocross
tabs.
race or a flat track race. You guys were running it, I imagine. Scorekeeper, you guys are running riders sign up.
We've done everything.
We've
We've
done
done
it
every
all.
role there is to
Corners,
be
you
done.
name
From
But-
working
but-
the gate to whatever.
But
Yeah.
you guys initiated all those tasks, right? You were the ones who organized all that stuff to start with.
The boss over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheap labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheap labor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as Santa Fe, as the sort of guide as to how it was done back in the day, Judy?
That was
Santa
our
Fe,
reward.
but also we had a friend that ran races up at Luxembourg.
Okay.
And so I would do the scoring and sign up and everything for him. And that's when we would have ATVs, three-wheelers.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand number plates. So we would score them. I would score them by the color of their helmets. That was what choice I had. I didn't have paper plates in the back of the van.
Right.
Yeah, that was later.
Okay. When did the rule? I remember when I first started racing, and I had no idea what sort of numbers to put on my motorcycle. I had motocross numbers because I had been riding motocross, just events, and so like my first dirt track, I didn't have knobbies, but I didn't have any. I didn't know what to, and I came with my motocross numbers, and it was like a 3-digit number, and that wasn't gonna happen. And you were like, it's got to be the last 2 digits of your AMA card, unless that you're number 1 or something like
Right.
that.
Single digit.
Right. So
Yeah. See, that was the
That's a great
AMA
rule.
said you have to choose a numbering system.
okay.
And some states did assign 3-digit numbers. And I'm thinking of my bride here and whoever else is doing scoring. Don't throw 3 numbers at them, especially on a short track.
Right.
And when you've got a 13-second lap with 12 guys, you're going to,
Right.
you know. So we picked out last 2 of your AMA number because that's permanent.
So great.
That doesn't
It's
change.
a great rule.
And now District 14 of Michigan does the same thing.
Really.
Yep.
I'm surprised everyone hasn't adopted that. It seems like a great way to keep track of everyone.
Yeah. Some of them don't
think?
want to be
Yeah.
in the pattern if you're in the mold.
Sure.
Yeah.
You guys were doing Astalon for 10 years? Longer than that? How long was that period of time?
Wait.
We're still
Still
doing
doing
it.
it.
Still doing it.
Last month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
50 years
Oh,
later.
I saw
Yeah.
you in
Jokey
September.
Jeremy just showed up. So how long has it been?
Since
Still,
it started.
yeah.
53 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Well, I don't think we probably didn't run the first short track in 70. It was probably more like, I remember doing that when Jimmy was in diapers, so he must have been close to 2.
Yeah. See?
Wow.
Not far off.
Wow.
When Chris was a pit steward.
But I can only
Really?
imagine the
All by
abuse.
myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Working the shoot.
The abuse.
That's where you learn to be like you over there, you
Pretty
over
much,
there,
yep.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, let me even pause there and mention that I've already mentioned this to Bert. The Sumners are a mentor, and when meeting the Sumners, when like, hey, I think I want to do my own race, help me out, Sumners. And and thinking, this is no secret, man. Why are they so crabby? Why are they so stern? And it takes you 10 minutes to be, once you're a flat track promoter, to learn why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you have to talk to people that way. It's not that you don't love it. It's not that you disrespect people. It's that you have to be short and quick because you're organizing 300
A
people.
lot of people.
That's
do
right.
A lot of things.
Yeah.
And it
Always
can
a lot of balls in the air at a race.
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
sidetracked very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But my original question was, so you were doing Astalon, you've been doing it for 50 years. Why do that's not enough? Why do more? Why continue to put yourself through this abuse?
It's very simple. We want it to be done and done properly.
And for the enthusiasm to have it be successful.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
we love
we've
racing
gone
as much as anybody else.
Right.
So
Right.
we've gone all over the country and run races. And we've gone to races because I'm an old fool and wouldn't quit racing. And we get up at a racetrack and a promoter and say, I need help. Right, girls?
Yep.
Texas.
Texas.
Devil's Bowl.
Yep.
What's the story?
The promoter was running a 600 national which was next to the Grand Nationals then. Bert was stationed in Fort Silly.
Wait, what's a 600 national?
That's
It's a 600
class.
cc
Oh,
bike.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just 600 singles.
Just 600. That's it.
Yeah, like a second tier.
Yeah.
AF, the Grand Nationals,
Yep.
and then 600s. So they were running one at Devil's Bowl in Mesquite, Texas. Bert was stationed in Fort Silly. So he said, hey, let's all go surprise Bert. We'll show up. Because he was racing a little like Aztlan. Faxon, was it?
Yeah.
A little local short track every week. I said, let's go down there. I'll bring my bike. We'll race, so on and so forth. So we talked half the Illinois guys to come down there.
No
We brought a crew
way.
with
Yeah,
us, yeah.
the Gruber bunch, which was
Gruber's
two or
there.
three vans full.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all, down the highway we go. We get down there, and Faxon first. Bert and I raced. He won, and I got second. Surprised the hell out of everybody.
I wasn't scoring that race.
No, they were being pit tootsies.
That was what we learned what on the track means.
On
too.
the track.
We're gonna
On the track.
What's
Yeah.
that?
We were racing with cars
Oh,
at the same
on
night, and it was red clay, and so they would just soak the track for practice. They just soak it, absolutely
Yeah.
soak it. So motorcycles for practice was a waste of time. It's like you just let the cars go out there. By the time the heat races came around, there was at least a groove that you could ride on.
Okay.
But practice was
Just
they would just say they wouldn't say practice. They say we're gonna iron the track out.
Yeah.
And they just send the cars out to try to push all the mush out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So we
The
did
first
that.
time I did practice there, I didn't realize that the track was that mucky, and so I went hauling ass down to the turn one and just
Caked
into a
your
soup
tires,
and
really? Oh.
just getting mud all
Oh,
over
no.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that. We get down to Mesquite the next day, and the promoter comes out, and he was in a wheelchair. And we're all sitting there in line. And he says, anybody know how to work a race? I got no helpers.
Well, that was the day after the 600 National. The
Right.
600 National they ran fine because A&A
That's
was
right.
there with their crew. So it was the next day they were going to
Yeah.
have
Oh,
like
really?
Like a pro-am.
a pro-am event or whatever
Yeah.
the next day. And
All right.
it was like, when in Rome, right? We're here. We might as well race. And we pull up and the line is like, 30 people deep, and Dad gets up and walks up to the front, and he's like, what the hell's going on? And the guy's like, I don't have anybody. And he's like, I'll hook you up. And he comes over to the van, he's like, come on, girls, we need your help. And so then we did scoring and signed up for the race after the amateur or after the 600 National.
Yeah.
Really? You guys just took over sign up.
The whole
scoring.
deal.
Scoring.
Yeah.
We took over
Really?
everything, and I think we got paid what? Dad rode for free?
Yeah. We got real rich
Yeah,
off
rich
of that.
on that one. Dad
Really?
rode for free that day. Yeah.
You ran the chute. You
He
ran
probably
the line.
charged you, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weather was nice though.
It was.
I don't think we
Very
rode.
nice.
We probably didn't run the chute. I think he had people to run the chute, but I don't know what happened to his staff,
Yeah.
his girls, let's say.
And
'cause
that's
there was no
happened
one.
several times throughout our
It's more
career.
than once.
Yeah.
That's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that.
That's
So.
awesome.
But so that was where you kind of cut your teeth, or maybe you got confidence outside of the state of Wisconsin, like, hey, we can handle whatever's thrown at us.
Oh, yeah.
But my original question is why keep doing it?
For the love of the sport.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
I mean, I know the answer to this question, but you love this sport.
And we don't want it to go away.
Right.
Plain and simple.
But if you look, I mean, and again, I'm a little biased, but I've watched, motocross and supercross and road racing and trials and stuff like that, and I honestly think that flat track is the coolest kind of motorsport that's out there.
Agreed.
If nothing else, just because you're going sideways in a corner, you know what I mean? Feet on the pegs, wide open, just freaking going. To me, that takes more skill than doing a jump or holding it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
people that don't understand it, they're like, oh, you're running in circles, whoop-de-doo. But it really, if you can see the right race, it is really badass, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that's why I'm in it to win it, is because I want to keep that going and get people to experience it, more people that would normally see it. So that's why we do Plymouth. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you're gonna do something, do it right. Don't just do it half-ass. So
Yes.
we
We try to do it whole ass. Is what
full
we try
ass.
to do.
Yeah, we're all in. It's either an epic failure, or it's the best event ever. We don't do anything half-ass, but
Well, yeah. I mean, Dairyland is it's if it's not a weather issue, it's always the most solid, exciting, well-run race
Yep.
there is. And
Thank you.
I really,
Thank you.
really, really love that race, and I think everyone looks forward to it every year.
Yep.
And it's great to see that it's still carrying on and growing, and
Yep.
the pros show up every year, so that's pretty awesome.
That's a blessing. It
That's all
absolutely
Bert.
is.
Yeah.
He's got the rapport with those guys, yeah.
You stay
Yeah.
in touch with those guys, Bert?
All the time.
Yeah.
As much as I can,
Through
yeah.
social media, phone calls, text messages, all
yeah.
that stuff. Yeah.
Every which way I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so many of them, they don't really tip their hands until like the day of.
Okay.
So that's the only negative part of it, is that you don't know who's showing up until, I woke up the morning of Plymouth this year, turned on my phone, and there was a text message from Jared Meese, I'll see you in a few hours. So, it's a nice way to start the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very
Yep.
cool.
And I think too why we still stay in it is these people are our family. It's like extended family. We didn't go on vacations as kids. We
Right.
went to Atwater to sleep overnight, or we went to Aztalan for the weekend. And that's how a lot of our racing family has been. And so for us, it's family, it's home, it's a second
Yep.
home to all of us. So
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever stop going to the races.
Change that. Yeah.
We all, you get a few bad apples once in a while, but for the most part, and
Yeah.
and we've all seen it when something happens, the short track family all gloms together and they take care of the people they need to.
Yeah.
And you don't get that everywhere. You don't get that at a job anymore. You don't get that,
That's true.
Yeah.
sometimes with your own family.
Right.
What's your 30,000-foot view of the last 50 years of flat track? Like the big observations, like the big things that you've seen change for good or for bad. But for someone for people who have been in it as long as you all have.
For me, being a spectator more than I am a racer, I have, Aztalan is like a love project, and so is Atwater for them. That's their love project. I think when you look at the pro races, Springfield is done to a T. DuQuoin was usually done to a T. I think it's hard when the pro tracks go to a place that's been in a drought for years and they try to make a nice track out of it like you would get out of Springfield or DuQuoin or wherever. And that's hard because you're sending my family members there,
Right.
and it's not the most opportunity.
Like the really super nice,
right.
well-maintained
And it should be because,
facility. Yeah.
you put your whole life
Well,
savings
let me
into
let me
it,
let me
things
pause
like
that though. If you're talking about track conditions, because we started this conversation by saying that tracks were kind of poopy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking at history, you're saying tracks are getting more poopy, but yet they started out very poopy.
Right.
So that's
There was a
Right.
peak for a while. And
Yeah.
it's sort of,
Well, part of that too was, I blame it now on the way the sport is, because back in the days, like when you kids got started, there was basically just only a couple of people did track prep all over the nation.
Yeah.
They went from place to place.
oh wow.
So the tracks were, this is what we got.
Consistent.
But that's the same, that's the same.
Yeah.
The only ones that were exceptional were all like Santa Fe was, and Springfield.
Yeah.
I carried my pro card many years longer than I should, just so I could ride Springfield.
Yeah.
Really.
I never did well,
Right.
but the track was like this,
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Super solid.
And the other thing is the people in charge
Whoever.
are not the same. They're not as enthusiastic nor knowledgeable as they were.
Okay.
Would you agree with that, Bert?
Yeah, and even at the AMA level, and I think you're referring more at the professional level.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of positive things happening there, but it's going to take time to overcome the inertia of the past 5 years. But even at the amateur level, the AMA, their racing is not as important to them as it used to be,
Right.
and so it gets put on the back burner, and so you get a lot of questionable things that happen that kind of chip away at the roots of the sport. But as long as you keep having good people that want to see that are willing to take a couple of punches on the chin to keep doing what's right. You asked what's the main thing that I've seen different over the years is that when I started racing, I remember it was a lot more of a family atmosphere. It was you went to the races were almost secondary at times because you were going to see your buddies and your friends and
Okay.
blah
Yeah.
blah blah, and it's gotten a lot more competitive, and it's a lot more, I think it's a lot more isolated now than it used to be,
Right.
where it's not that friendliness that I remember from growing up, to where, half of the joy of going to the race was to see you or Jeremy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And now it's too much. Well, I don't want to talk to them because I got to race them, and it's gotten kind of. I think it's way too competitive
Right.
now.
And there aren't as many of them,
Yeah.
races wise. I mean,
Yeah.
like I tell people, my first pro race was in Springfield, Ohio, in April. Over 200 novices were at that race.
What does that mean for the people
Well, there
who
were
don't
3
understand
grades.
the different classes?
Novices were us beginners.
Beginners.
But
We were-
beginner pro.
Beginner.
Beginner
It wasn't,
pro,
it wasn't
Pro
right.
level.
You
You
had
had-
you had surpassed any kind of amateur level,
Correct.
and now
Correct.
so you're a junior level or a novice level pro.
Right.
It's not like you're a novice. It's my first time throwing a leg over a
Yeah.
flat
No,
track.
no, no.
And
No, no,
you had to get the referee to sign off that you are a
Right.
good enough amateur rider that you may now proceed to
Yeah.
pro.
Okay.
You
And you had to
couldn't
be
just say I'm a
16.
pro.
Yeah.
Right.
You had to be 16 as well.
Yeah. So there were 200 of us, and it was a day like today, if not, it was hotter. And so they would take the orange construction cones, line them up on the infield fence with a number on it. When you signed in, you'd draw a poker chip, which told you what heat and what position you were in. There would be 4-lap heat races, 2 rows. You had to win your heat race and be one of the 10 fastest heats to advance. Other than that, you were
No
done
way.
for the day.
Yeah, it was brutal back then when they had all those riders. Like, you had a heat and you
You were
If you
serious.
weren't good,
If
you went
didn't
home.
make it, you go
Yeah.
home.
done. Bye bye.
Wow.
And we were talking about that, and somebody on the web put up results from Santa Fe back in the day. I made the main event of Santa Fe one time
Yeah.
in all my years there.
No way.
One time.
Going every week.
Every week.
Wow.
From May through September.
That's amazing. And the whole family coming along too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hanging out as a family.
If
We
we
were-
were ready to go at 4:00,
Right.
like she
That's
said.
right.
Or you
Yeah.
And we were not allowed in the pits.
That's right.
only a
So he
rider.
would drop us off at the main gate and we would waddle through
Really?
Yeah.
the ticket booth and
You had to wear white
Yes.
White
be in the
pants, yeah.
pits.
to be in the pits.
Really?
And you need a mechanic's license from the AMA.
Yeah. No
Really?
women, no
16.
children.
No way.
That's the way it was. Well, the pits were jam-packed.
I
Yeah.
suppose.
There'd be 200 novices and probably 75 juniors and 25 experts.
So when we get there, we would run. We always sat by the start-finish line in the grandstands, and we would run over to the end of the grandstands by the pits, and we'd look over the fence, the big chain link fence, to see
Yeah.
who was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that before practice, so we would know that, Parker was there, Poovy was there, Scott Pearson was there, Bubba Schubert was there, Randy Goss was there. So we
Eklund.
Yeah.
knew who was there. Steve Eklund was there.
It also helped us figure out where we needed to get to for autographs after
Yes.
the races.
No way.
Yep, we
Really?
got to go
Oh,
past
yeah.
the red van.
Yep.
Poovy's right past that
Yeah.
guy, and he's
Yeah.
down
Get
there.
all mentally.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And then you could buy black and white pictures down below the grandstands for
Right.
like $5, I think they were,
From the week prior.
from the week prior.
Yeah.
And then you could take your brand new picture into the pit area and wait
have them
for
sign it.
someone to get done
No
taking
way.
their
But that was
leathers off.
after the races
That was
and
after
probably
the
after
races.
they put the van in, or the bike in the
Bikes
van.
away.
And
Yeah.
All
Then you
that
could
stuff.
get in there and then you could get autographs. Yeah,
You still have any of those?
of
Oh, yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And they would
Bert's
have
got
the
all
date on
mine.
the
I've got a
right
whole
side.
album.
Listening to you guys talk, and I mean this as a compliment, that it's almost like you guys were in a capsule, in a dome, in a flat track dome for 50 years.
Pretty much.
I mean, undistracted by any kind of pop culture references or cell phones or video
We didn't
games.
care.
Racing's
You guys-
not pulp culture?
Yeah.
Well,
We
and
listen to
it's
the music on the way down to the racetrack.
Right.
Come on now.
unless we threw the but like Dee Dee mentioned that we went to a racetrack every weekend, and how many families grow up doing something together every weekend?
Every weekend.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Right. There's no, and there's many more pluses than minuses from growing up in a dome. Your connection. I can feel the kinetic energy of you guys finishing each other's sentences and knowing the how a story goes.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to go back to Scott's 3,000 foot question. And when Scott asked you what's going on with flat track, you had a couple negatives that it's not the family atmosphere, the numbers are down. But is there a positive from the last 50 years of flat track?
Positive? No.
Positive of
I
its
don't
own.
think so.
The tracks are better.
The tracks are better. I'll agree with that.
But now wait a minute. Now you just said the tracks are not as good.
They're different.
Some of the
Certain-
professional
certain
ones aren't,
Got
but
it.
the local ones, you know, for Aztalan, there's guys that are working 2 or 3 nights out of the week to get that nice for the weekend. Same
Right.
with Beavers at Atwater, they're doing the same thing
Right.
out of passion for what they do. It's not just you show up Saturday morning and start working on it, you know.
And that's part of the problem with the pro level is that for the last couple of years, I don't think they do this anymore, but they had this philosophy of dirt is dirt. We just
Yeah.
hire Bob. Bob goes in and
Great.
grades it, and we'll be good to go. Well,
Make it flat.
every batch of dirt reacts differently and responds differently, and you know
Yep.
the advantage of the local stuff is that the people at Aspeland have been working that dirt for 50 years. The people at Atwater have been working that.
Yeah.
I forget when they converted it from the loamy dirt to the clay, but they've been working it for
Right.
over a
After we
decade or
did,
2 decades now, to where, and that's one of the challenges that we see is that the riders, especially the local ones, they're very reluctant to go to a new facility because they don't know what the track is going to be like.
Yeah.
And so they would prefer to, when I go to Aspeland, it's going to be like this. When I go to Atwater, it's going to be like this. When I go to Darlington, I don't know what it's going to be like. So do I want to go to Darlington? Do I want to go to Sturgeon Bay? Do I want to go here? Do I want to go there?
Right.
Yeah. And part of that is you'll all back it up. When we first went to Plymouth, that was like the old Aztalan, right, Bert?
Yeah.
It's-
Plymouth was not a nice racetrack for many years, but
No.
no one remembers that except me.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, we do.
We do.
That's 600 National.
Yeah.
That was a Grand National.
That was
right?
Grand
Grand
National,
National.
that's right.
Yeah.
That y'all promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We tried.
And this
Right.
was what year was
99.
this?
99.
Wow.
99.
The 600 National.
No, Grand National.
No, Grand
National.
National.
Grand
Wow.
National.
Yeah, would have been the first Grand National in Wisconsin since '66, and it rained out.
Right.
Yeah.
But like
Fortunately.
Thankfully,
Yeah.
thankfully, it rained
Thankfully.
out.
Why do you say
Thankfully.
thankfully?
Why?
Because
Yeah.
the
Track
track
was
was
not
the track was garbage.
Really?
The AMA showed up and said,
Yeah,
"Don't
right.
touch the track. We've got it." And then they didn't do anything to the track.
We know
Right.
what to do.
Yeah.
You have to dig it up.
You know, it's
Right.
bad when Will Davis commandeers the grader to do track prep himself. Will Davis was one of the top guys of the circuit that
National
year.
number 21.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And they told me the 2 AMA officials, we'll call them for lack of a better term. I said, you know, and Warren was the guy, the track guy.
Yeah.
And Warren said, Al, we need to do this. And I said, I'll tell him. I'll try. And he said, we know what we're doing. And I said, no, you don't.
Right.
Wisconsin
Track
soil
back.
is not
This is
Ohio.
our track.
Right. Yeah.
Our guys know what to do. We're in charge. We'll handle it.
Your kerfuffle you're having could have been 2018. I mean, it's the the same narrative.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. Those on the AFT side, most of them they're thinking here
Right.
in this way, and the rest of us are like right here. No, this is what we need to be doing.
Right.
Well, I think
They don't care.
The takeaway is you can be a great racer and have no idea how to build a racetrack.
Oh, for
And,
sure.
You know what I mean? And I think that's true about a lot of things, right? But I mean, there is a certain science and
Sure.
finesse to putting a racetrack together that not everybody can do. 'Cause
Right. You
everybody-
can be a good
Steve
promoter
Warner,
and not know how to
perfect
do it.
example.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
But then you just have to make sure that you surround yourself with people that do know how to do that.
There you
And
go.
That's
Exactly.
the whole thing about, like, you know, with all the stuff you guys do. You know, I mean, none of you are experts at everything, right? So you get the good team together and it makes it a lot easier. It makes it, you know.
And that's the key. The key that we've been blessed with is that we have a group of people, Chris Baker and Scott Mack and the others that tag along with us that have come along on this journey the last couple of years that they help us run the events so smoothly that we don't have to micromanage that much.
Right.
Right.
You know, it's really hard to put I'm sure as you know, you've cultivated your own group to do the Flat Out Friday, but if every year you were trying to train new people how to do it, you'd be constantly behind the 8 ball.
Right.
You know, if you had to write a book of all the things to know on how to put on a race successfully, it would fill this room and no one would be able to read it because it'd just be too much to work.
Yeah. There's just so many little detailing
Right, yeah.
things
Exactly.
that
Right.
don't fit
Right.
into any categorization.
Right.
Well, I want to highlight some of the positives that you mentioned about the last 50 years, the 30,000 view. And you mentioned about the family aspect and going to see friends. That still is an important part for me to see the kids growing up, right?
Yep.
To see them grow up and grow up through the
Absolutely.
classes. And then to see them kind of graduate from high school, figure themselves out, and then come back
Yep.
as
As
fans.
adults.
as adults.
Yep.
With their own kids.
With
With their own
yeah.
kids,
Right.
and that's a powerful thing to be a part of.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot more women too that are involved now, at least in flat
Yes.
track. That
Yes.
Yes.
you know, Julia Hansen rides like she'll ride as many classes a night as you let her.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And she's a rock
She's
star out there.
65. Is she 65?
I know
I thought
she's
she
older
was-
than me.
I thought she was 58. I thought was the number, but
Yeah.
I could
Yeah,
be
but
wrong.
Oh, really?
like
But she just won the
unstoppable.
master's class.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. She's
Yeah.
got to be over
She
60
does.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's
I don't want to create a
unstoppable.
controversy.
So, like, right?
Yeah.
But when I was racing in the district, I think I was the only girl. For
You know what? Tell me a little bit about
while,
that. You racing in the
For
district.
a
Tell
year.
me.
Like, I raced for a year. My heart wasn't in it at all. Like, I.
Did you?
I
Did you?
think she only did it to please me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did it.
And she's still trying.
I'm still trying all these years.
What were you on? And how old were you? And what were you racing?
I was on a.
RM80.
Well, first I was on that stupid Italjet that Dad brings home, this yellow Italjet he's all excited about, and it had a false neutral between every gear, so I never, like, literally dumped it on the line every time. I'm like, seriously, Dad? And then
Yeah.
he'd be like, I'll make sure it's in the real neutral.
And I
Here you
didn't.
go. And it was like, done, just done. So I didn't like it. I didn't have the
That wasn't your skill set.
it wasn't my skill set. It wasn't the go get 'em. I didn't want to get hurt, honestly. You know what I mean? And I had
Because of her age, she was also in with a
the
really,
really
aggressive
fast guys.
Yeah, the
guy.
big
who,
guys.
You know,
Yeah.
the guys would out of
Knock
turn
me
one,
over all
knock
the
her
time.
over. Yeah.
And like literally my dad went after one guy the one time my father ever like
Stood up to
had
you.
my six, he went and yelled at the wrong guy.
And how old were you? I missed that. How old were you at that time?
12.
You were
Okay.
12.
12.
Yeah.
And then I was
Waiting
like,
for people.
done. I'll just work the pits. I'm good. I'll just stay there.
Well, you're
Fine.
30,000 of you though. I still think the family is still very much part of this
Absolutely.
community.
Yes.
But you mentioned the numbers are going down, and from my shorter or smaller window of being in this, I think the numbers are going up.
I agree.
It's every time I'm at Astellan, there's got to be close to 150, 200
200 plus.
amateurs.
We had
So
200.
just
Asphalt
discounting
this year has been phenomenal.
discounting the pros, which I don't have an opinion or an ability to fix or understand, but the amateurs numbers are got to be.
Well, my opinion is that because there's so many more classes now that you can race, I'm convinced that there's fewer racers, but there's more entries. Because I can remember going to, and I don't remember Astellan that much because it was always dark, but you could always, at Atwater, you could go on the hill and look into the pit area, and it would just be wall-to-wall vehicles.
Yeah.
And now, and the last time, I haven't been there in many years, but the last time I was there, I was like, wow, there's nobody here. No, the pits are full. It's like, no, there's like nobody down there. You can count the cars on.
They were like in the field or that
Yeah.
or that
off
went
to
down
the
by the
right.
river.
Yeah.
I went around. It still didn't seem like that there were that many vehicles, but
Right.
I think that there's a mentality now of one guy, one rider, one racer, one bike, 4 classes.
Right.
Yep.
So you could have 20 vehicles, and that's 80 entries. Whereas
Right.
back in our day, it was one rider, one bike. That's one class.
Right.
And it was very rare that people raced multiple classes because that would be multiple bikes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, because it was all displacement driven. So if you rode, if you rode 3 classes, that meant you had to have 3 different bikes: the 80
motorcycles.
class, the 100, the 125 class, or the 125, 250, 360, all those kinds of things. Whereas now I've got one bike, I can ride this 4 times, and he can ride that bike 4 times if he wants to, and
Right.
That's cool.
so it's just a different philosophy
Yeah,
and a different
yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Much.
Well, I'm going to guess we're coming up on an hour. So, what's the future of the Sumners? I must have seen you guys retire 3-4 times. I've been to 3 or 4 retirement ceremonies with you
Okay.
with you two guys, and what's the future?
Hopefully it's right there.
Well, what do you mean? It is. It is.
No
here.
pressure. No pressure.
I mean,
There is no generation after us. I mean, her daughter is the only one of the next generation that's really interested in doing
Correct.
anything.
right.
Yeah.
And she's a dynamite scorer, but I don't see her getting into promoting and taking on all the hassles
She'll be
that you have
dragging
to
me
do.
to the racetrack in my walker. We'll all go together.
You'll be up in the Azzy Tower. I remember back when I was.
It takes a special breed, shall we say, to
Yeah.
do what we do.
Yep.
You know, I got into it because I loved it, and I still do. And I kind of dragged them all into it behind me.
I think
That's
that's
it.
that's
You
the
know.
story here, ultimately, right? Is this not the story?
Yeah.
That you got into it and you dragged your family.
Forrest kicking and screaming.
He's hit his head a lot over the years too. It should be said.
That too. I mean, I raced all over the world back when I was in the service. So it's a much different thing. And I came, and it was like the AFT is kind of, it was a cold, sterile type environment. This is more
It's all business.
family oriented. And I love it. And if it goes away, I'll be very sad.
Yeah.
And
Well, why would it go away?
lack of people to do it. It takes a lot of work to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
You know?
There's a lot of clubs that are putting on races that seem to be holding on by the skin of their teeth.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Just
nobody's
trying to find enough bodies to
right.
keep it going.
And nobody's getting rich doing this. So you join a club, which is fine. You pay your dues, and hopefully you have enough members. But I know you're an ASI member. I don't know if you are or not, but I mean, it's harder and harder to find people. It's probably even
For
worse,
sure.
in what you do. And then, again, nobody gets rich. So even if you're from a promoter side, like for the Dairyland Classic, I mean, we've been blessed with excellent sponsors that come back every year and
Yes.
they support us. And there's no big hard sell. It's like, hey, how's it going? You can help us out again this year? Oh, great. You want to give me more money? Perfect. And, we do that, but we've busted our asses to get to that point where
Yeah.
the riders know, what they're in for when they come to the Dairyland Classic, that we're going to do everything to put on the best event that we can put on.
Exactly.
But we don't get rich doing this.
No.
And even we have to sometimes struggle to get corner workers.
Right.
Yeah.
You would think that something as simple as a corner worker would be
Yeah.
you just got to put out the APB and people will come knock on the
People
door.
just like,
You know,
yeah.
Here's an opportunity to stand in the corner at the best show in
Yeah.
the country
Yeah.
And they don't want to do it.
because they'd rather be in the pit area.
But even for like the 3 hour, everybody wants to run the 3 hour.
Yeah.
You have to run the 3 hour.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a 7-mile course. You know how many corner workers I need?
Yeah.
You know how much support staff I need for that? And everybody wants to race. And it's hard to get people to help.
Let me review the Sumner list real quick of the.
I know. I was gonna say,
of
whoa,
the-
back up.
yeah.
We didn't even touch on ice racing.
So we have the Dairyland Classic usually the first week of June in Sheboygan, Sheboygan County
In
Fairgrounds.
Plymouth, yeah.
You have the 3-hour ice race national. Is that an amateur?
It's a Grand Championships, the GP Grand Championships.
And so for those that don't know, that's most laps in 3 hours. Ultimately,
3 hour endurance race.
11-mile
Yeah.
course.
It's 8.
Oh.
8.
7 or 8.
7
Yeah.
or 8.
Right around 8.
Depending on
yeah.
what Jeff Fredette, the ice god, puts together for me.
and anybody that's just listening passively and not actively listening to what we're saying. So just imagine that, and when I can see it, the infrastructure. We haven't even discussed the infrastructure of what you might need for again. Let me go through the description. 8-mile course, 3-hour race,
Endurance race.
endurance race on ice. The infrastructure from that alone would choke a non-promoter or a non-appreciator.
Yeah.
And are there some other events that I'm missing, Bert? What else you guys got going
Well,
on?
we're also going to we're going to host the AMA Oval Grand Championships in February of this year.
Nice.
Okay.
Or in February 2024.
Well, what city is that? Is that
That's going to
secret?
be on Lake Winnebago in Fond du Lac.
Is that secret?
Oh wow.
No.
Okay, all right. By the
Sunset on the
auto fisherman auto.
That's
Otter
during the
Street.
the Fishing Without Boundaries will be the oval.
This is not Otter Street.
Otter Street.
It's
Yeah.
not
No,
Otter
no.
Street.
It's not,
on the
that's
lower
gone.
on the
Otter
other side
Street
of the
is
lake.
done.
It's on the lower end of the lake. at
Got it.
Sunset Grill. Right?
Lake Winnebago is a huge lake.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Fond
This
du
is
Lac.
on the
Fond du Lac.
southeast corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
like Mount Calvary.
And you guys do a
And we
couple.
also do the Door County Fair.
And we do the Door County Fair
In August.
That's
in August.
All right, and that's enough. And then Astalon, as if this right.
Yeah.
Well, there's more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there might be more. I mean, we're,
Yeah.
got all kinds of stuff cooking
Yeah.
just
Well,
to see.
and you talk about how people don't want to do it, and I guess that's ultimately what really makes me upset is because it's so easy to complain on social media or just just generally the negative nomenclature in a pit is track conditions or why are they closing because it's rain, and they have no skin in the game of what it means to be a promoter.
Right.
But then when you tell them, but why don't you run your own race and then you can tell
Yeah.
me, and then they get offended. Like, I can't believe you said that to me. You know what I mean? And it's like,
And boy, do they.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
you know.
But I want you to know, if I have anything to do with this, if Scott and I have anything to do with this, we'll do our best to carry the flag of keeping races going in the community and the culture
Appreciate
going, based on your mentorship.
Because you guys have been such an inspiration for us. I mean,
Well,
we took
thank you.
everything that we know about promoting, which is very little compared to you. But you guys were you guys set the example of being organized and scoring well and just running a properly run race. I mean that when we got into it, we realized that the bar is very high. So and we appreciate you guys.
I remember Bert
doing that.
give me some. All of you have given me some great advice, little nuances. I remember you, Dee Dee, even watching my kid race and then giving me some suggestions. He's on a 50, 65, and you'd come over and tell me he needs to sit back on that bike a little more. Who are you? At that time, what does this woman know about what's going on with me and my son? But Bert told me that if you're going to promote an event, you have to stay strong with your philosophy and who you are and what you do. Now, of course, that's great advice, but I see other promoters not being so steadfast or rock, and so
Yes.
so Instagram comments or Facebook comments can change and they're waffling, trying to please everybody,
Right.
and then they lose themselves in that.
Yep.
So I appreciate that. For better or for worse, I think Flat Out Friday has kind of stayed steadfast with what we do, and the Dairyland Classic, certainly through the storm of it all, you have the brand of what that event means. That it's very whereas ours is a little clown show. You're much more of a prestigious, like almost military kind of. Like even the national anthem, I think, is a great articulation of the difference of the two.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we
Well-
were lucky to have grown up going to Santa Fe on Wednesdays and
Right.
Where you
watching
saw the pageantry, if
pro
you will, or-
races at Elkhorn and Marshfield, and watching how those were all, even as kids, watching how smooth that went. Maybe not totally smooth.
And
but
watching
with
how,
weather.
something that I say all the time is that just watch and see what other people do and
Yeah.
avoid the mistakes that they make
Yeah.
and copy the things that they do well. And so we've been around, having been, going to races every weekend since we were 8, 9, and 10.
Right.
We have binders full of mental notes of, remember when that guy did that and that didn't work at all? Yeah, let's not do that.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
But by the same token, that was cool. Did you see how they did that differently
Right, let's
at
try
Lima
that.
this year? Yeah, let's totally bring that in and do that kind of a thing.
Yeah, Scott, I don't know if you know this or not, but the first few years when we were doing Flat Out Friday, I would meet with the Sumners, and they would give me an end of the race summary. And it was sometimes hard to swallow. Right? Someone give you typed notes on highlighting your mistakes,
Right.
but it's important.
Yeah. it
Who
is
gave the
important.
typed notes?
Yeah.
That was me.
I figured as much.
Shocking.
Well,
I still have them.
Shocking.
with
In
us
fact, they're
traveling-
in my pocket right here.
Yeah.
Let's pull those out.
with
Well,
us
I used to
traveling
bring up
all
my
over-
own notes every year, and they'd go, and I remember Mom going, "Why do you bring that up every single year?" And I say, "Because we don't want to repeat it.
Right.
That's why we review it
Yeah.
and make sure, because the only mistake is the one that you make twice."
Right.
And we do that, Jeremy, with all of our
No,
events.
and it's much appreciated.
You're like
It's-
part of the clan that if he
No, but-
actually typed up the notes, then you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's a
Someone
good.
really
It's a
cares.
good. You take your headphone off and then you go have a beer and you erase what had happened. Bert told me to just remember.
Because we
Remember.
won't. And you had a great comment when I was here last time where you said there's promoters out there that put on an event and their wife says, "Hey, you did a good job," and they go, "Hey, I did a great job." No, you didn't. Your wife said you did a great job. You did a crappy job. And so you can't rely on that kind of.
Of subjective information.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody says I did great. No, that was your wife and 2 kids.
Right, exactly. And the guy you let ride the bike you shouldn't have been
Right.
riding. Those are the only people
Yeah.
that said you did a good
And
job.
your wife only says it because she knows how you get when she tells you bad things.
One thing that I've picked up on is, and I think you all have, we'll see it when we put on an event like Aztlan or Plymouth. The people who are not normally here are the ones that will be objecting to things, right? And then we point out to them, well, this is the way it's supposed to be done. Oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So social media hasn't helped, giving people an enhanced theory of their own importance.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
Whoa, bold
Yeah.
philosophical statements from Bert.
No, that's true.
I got a million of them.
No, I bet. All right, but see, it's been an hour. Our director is telling us it's been an hour, so we like to clap it up here. We're clapping it up for the Sumners.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been great to talk. I feel like we could do this again and just.
We've said that last time.
I know, but maybe some smaller groups, and we could just go into like some in-depth stories.
Okay.
We never even touched on Al's European career and
That was not very great, but
no, but it's just
But the people in Europe are still talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. They are.
well, they keep telling me to write a book, and I said they wouldn't believe it.
And I'm not trying to. We're wrapping up. But you had a modified racing career, right? Am I right? You raced
Yeah.
cars.
Yes, I did. Won the state championship in Kansas.
Haven't even unpacked this.
See?
Exactly. We could have a whole entire episode just devoted to
Whole volume.
ice racing in general.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
promoting
Easily could do
the
that.
world of
Yes.
ice racing. I'm sure people have so many questions. So
Right on.
I've done it and I still have so many questions.
You had to be here in the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, so then we're going to rephrase this. This is the Sumner Family Clan episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1.
Yep.
Well, thank you. We
All right.
appreciate
Thank you.
having
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
Thank you.